All right, and we're back. AGS, any given Sunday, our show. We're going to have the final pre draft sports special show, including our champion Anthony and our runner up Rich, who he just quietly gets it done. It's boring as boring
He
can be,
does.
but he gets it done. So
He
let's get right
does.
into it. We're gonna start off with Rich's team. Rich's team has a ton of keeper options, but if we're just being
Yep.
realistic, he's gonna keep Devontae Freeman for $3. He's gonna keep Julio Jones at $54, and then he's gonna keep Derek Carr at $1. Fellas, what do we got for that? What's our opinions?
All
So
right.
that's 74. That's 74 for Julio because I'm including the
So
twenty
he's gonna
dollar
start
tag,
out with. Yep.
and then $3
So he's
for
gonna start
Freeman.
off
So
around
78.
142.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he's gonna start off around 142, which is great. I think honestly, if I can remember correctly, this is probably the best cap situation that he started off with. Because last year he was playing with less money, if I remember correctly. So, with that being said, Julio Jones being off the board is a huge help. I think. I like Derek
So
Carr
I'm sorry,
much
he's gonna be
more.
at 122, Steve. I'm sorry. Let me just
Oh,
get that corrected.
122. Okay.
122. Yeah.
So still, I mean, that's still not bad with those three players because essentially he's got a starting quarterback done. He's got a top receiver done, and I mean Devontae Freeman. He's not the most glamorous name, but he gets it done.
Fact.
He finishes great. The concern I have for Rich is I think Devontae Freeman's value took a hit, in my opinion, when what's his name as offensive coordinator left. And now he has Julio Jones there, which Julio Jones has been through many offensive coordinators, and he still puts up top 10 numbers. So that's why I'm not worried about him. But I am worried about Devontae Freeman. So for me, Rich, I agree. He's been quietly been doing it done. He's been drafting much better. There are years where he had like 2-3 years where he did nothing, and then he came back to back. I think Rich is going to do the same thing. He's going to go after guys. I mean, look at his what he could have kept. I mean, he's going to go after these same type of guys like a Latavius Murray. I'm not saying him specifically, but I'm saying that type of player, right?
Yep. That's what he always does.
Like a Kelvin Benjamin, the Eric Deckers, the Travis Kelce's of the world. He had Carlos Hyde there, which I'm actually a little shocked he's not considering it. But at the same time, I do understand because the 49ers did draft a kid that I believe John Lynch really likes and that the head coach likes. So I get why he cut ties with Carlos Hyde. Um, so I think he's in a good position. For me, Rich, I don't know exactly what he's going to go for. I think Rich is one of those guys that he'll make a decision in the draft, and he always has a number that he sticks to. I mean, there are times where he'll go up and he'll outbid people, but that's if he has them on his board. But as far as the type of players he's going after, I can't tell you. I mean, because Rich is one of those chameleon change type guys that he'll go after these type of players, and he'll switch his strategy up, and it works for him. So I'm gonna kick it off to you two. I know I'm not really saying anything with what I'm saying, but he's one of the hardest teams to predict as far as like the type of players because he gets these type of guys. But when he gets them, they work for him. It's the weirdest thing.
Okay. Go ahead, Anthony.
You cannot look. I'm always more of a fan of the wide receiver, running back stacked in a QB, running back a QB wide receiver, because you figure that the quarterback's important, but he has to get his points from one of those two guys, and those are going to be the top two guys on still one of the most explosive offenses in the league in a division where the defenses are getting better. New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Carolina, but look, they were terrific last year. I understand they lost Shanahan. Who did bring? I think they bring Steve Sarkisian, who ran an office at USC, which is really similar to what they had now. It's not going to be much of a difference. Maybe a little change in the terminology, sure, but just the general overall statement of the offense. I mean, Matt Ryan is who he is, but Julio Jones is Julio Jones. And like I said, even if you keep him with the keeper tag, he's still at that value is going to be less than what he would be in the open market.
Yep.
Get a running back like that. Now, like I said, Freeman isn't. There's nothing like really amazing or sexy about him. But he just gets the job done. For some reason, at the end of games, 1-10, like somehow you see he scored 11, 15, 17, 12 fantasy points. Like, how the hell did he do it? but he just somehow gets it done. Then you throw in David Carr. That's your trifecta. I don't know what else more you can ask for a guy, and especially from a guy who just has his ability to, once it comes draft time, he's going to draft intelligently and get the guys he's interested in, and that's really all there is to it. He doesn't panic. He doesn't overextend himself. When he wants the guy, he gets the guy, and just kind of calls it a day from there. There's no stress. There's no reactivation. There's no second guessing in what he's doing. He's always going to be consistent. So that makes him a threat this year, just as again the year before and the year before that. What you're worried about is that hopefully he doesn't fall in love with a guy or he thinks he's going to outsmart some guy. Like, if I get this guy at this price, then I know X guy is going to be available. Then I can take. Sometimes you just don't overthink it. Sometimes you get your guys and you call it a day, and hopefully that's what he's going to do. Am I afraid of him? Nah, I'm two-time champion. I'm not afraid of anybody. But I just find it interesting that his team get more and more inventive, that the talent's there, but it just needs just a little bit more. But I think having Julio and having Freeman and having Carr is a great start. 122 is enough to play with to get another big piece and fill in the rest of the gaps. I'm just really interested to see what he's going to do.
Man, and now it's time for the point in the show where everybody says, Jesus hates Julio Jones. Jesus hates Julio Jones. It's that time, which Jesus doesn't hate Julio Jones, but Jesus calls a spade. And that's what Jesus is going to do. Julio Jones is talked about as if he is a top 3 wide receiver in this league for fantasy. And he is not a top 3 wide receiver. What were we just discussing in the previous show about Amari Cooper's weakness? How many touchdowns did Amari Cooper have last year?
He had 5.
Do you know how many touchdowns Julio Jones had last year?
Let me guess.
I'll tell you.
Probably
6.
5.
6 touchdowns. 6. Do you know how many games he had single digits in last year that he played within the regular season? I'm not even going to count the playoffs. Within the regular season.
Are you talking injuries too, or without?
No. I'm talking about games that he actually played in, not games that he missed, because he missed games during our fantasy playoffs. So that hurts it even more. But I'm not even going to include those within our 13-game regular season that he played every single game. He had.
I'm going to say 3 or 4, right?
So he had 1, 2, 3, 4. That's almost 25% of the season. Of our regular season. I'm sorry, guys, but he's not that. He's not an Antonio Brown. He's not an Odell Beckham. Hell, I don't even think he's a Jordy Nelson. He's a very good name. He is a phenomenal name. He is a great football player. He is an amazing football player. But he is not at the level of these other guys. And I'm tired of people putting him there. Because look at his numbers, guys. He's not.
No, wait. I understand you're doing that.
Yeah.
I understand you're doing that. But at the end of the day, all right, when you have a Mike Evans off the board, an Antonio Brown off the board, an Odell Beckham off the board, a Hilton off the board, I mean...
Oh, he's there.
I get it.
Yeah, I pay 70 for him.
He's a top 10, right?
Yeah, absolutely he's a top 10. No, I would say that without a problem. All my debate is...
If Julio Jones was out there, I'm just saying, just walking you through a scenario.
Yeah.
With all those names I just called out and Julio Jones...
I'm paying 70 plus for him.
How much would Julio go for?
I'm paying 70 plus for him. Easily. Absolutely. That's not my debate, Steve. But listen to my debate here. Once again, I'm going to say it because I don't want this taken as I'm saying Julio Jones is a bum, that he's not a top 10 receiver. What I'm saying is he's not up there with Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, Jordy Nelson, and Mike Evans. He's not those guys.
Agreed.
And I'm tired of people putting him up there because he's not. The reason why Steve, the reason why Rich, but the reason why, but everybody puts him up there. Listen to all the fantasy shows. They all put him up there. Some even say that he's the best wide receiver in football, and he's not. He's not the best wide receiver in football. And it bothers me. I take that personally. I don't know why. I'm not a wide receiver. I'm nowhere near these guys' level. But it just annoys me because they're just ignoring the numbers. And yes, I'm talking numbers because that's all fantasy football is. Fantasy football is about numbers at the end of the day. The one thing you can count on Julio Jones about every year is he's going to be injured. He's gonna miss a game or two, and he's gonna give you single-digit point games in games that he plays in. That's what you can rely on him about, and that to me is why.
Slightly interject.
Yeah, because I need to breathe. Yeah.
Okay, So we made this argument about Julio Jones, and that the problem with him is that from weeks 1 to 13, before he got to fantasy playoffs, he had 4 games under 10 points, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Odell Beckham had 5.
Okay. And then how many games did Odell Beckham miss last year? Because
None.
again, exactly.
I know. Let me finish the point.
Go ahead.
People fall in love with Julio Jones because when they look at him, he has a higher ceiling than everybody else.
That's a fact. I'll give you that. Yep.
All the other guys you named, Nelson, Evans, Brown,
Yep.
all those guys, they don't have as high of a ceiling, but they have a higher floor.
You're right.
Well, can I add something to that, Anthony?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
The other thing with Julio Jones and why I feel like people love Julio Jones is because when he does have that game, he literally wins you the game.
Absolutely.
You got to look at numbers
you're right.
differently too.
You're right.
So when he has put it up, he's put up 38-point games.
Yep.
That's a win if you have him on your team.
That's a fact.
Put a 19-point game on the board. That's a win if you have him on your team. He's had 17 and 17 twice. He's had 15 once. So his level of when he plays and actually performs, because he's got them of all the receivers we've named, he has the highest chance besides an Antonio Brown, in my opinion, to get you to win a game.
Right. He literally has the highest ceiling.
Agreed. I won't deny that from you guys. I won't deny that.
About the Super Bowl at all. Period. I kind of sort of remember Julian Edelman's catch, but what I do remember about the Super Bowl is basically Julio Jones looking superhuman. Yep. That's what we fall in love with. When you see him do the things that normal humans just cannot do, you just he's great. He's great. He's great. The problem is that he doesn't stay healthy enough to do that all the time. So when you have your other guys, when you have
But you have to count that. But you have to take that into account. Because Julio Jones, in my opinion, is another Terrell Owens, but he's a poor man's Terrell Owens. And I'll say it. He's a poor man's Terrell Owens for fantasy football. When Terrell Owens played fantasy football, he showed up week in and week out.
Right, because he had a higher floor.
Julio doesn't do that. Exactly. Yeah. Julio's floor is not. I won't say he's a basement because he's definitely not a basement floor. But what I'm saying is he'll get you single digit point game, and I don't like that. That's too risky as far as putting him up there. Now, Steve, this is where I'm gonna make it very clear. I'm not saying I don't want Julio Jones on my team. Of course I would love Julio Jones on my team. But I'm not paying the same price I paid for Odell Beckham, for Antonio Brown, for Mike Evans. Maybe Jordy Nelson just because Jordy Nelson is older. But Jordy Nelson in his prime, I'm not even paying the same price I would pay for Jordy Nelson in his prime.
Exactly. I mean, and look, I'm looking at all these players now that you called out that single-digit number. I mean, Jordy Nelson had 6.
Yes.
Mike Evans also had 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. Even Antonio Brown had 3. Anthony just listed off Odell.
But again, I was giving you guys 1 point because I didn't want to include the fact that he misses games. We have to. If you want, I'll pull the whole argument. But I didn't even want to throw that in there that he misses games because if we throw that in, first of all, I don't even know how Rich beat you without Julio Jones, but somehow he did, and that's not a shot. I'm just saying, no, that's actually a shot at Rich, not at you. But I don't even know how he did that. But that's the thing is, these other guys that we're mentioning, okay, fine, yeah, they had single digits also, but these guys play every week. This dude, Julio Jones, is always dinged up. There's always something wrong.
I get it, but even when they play every week, I mean, T.Y. Hilton, he had almost 6.
So right.
Well, he's better than T.Y. No. But he's better than T.Y. I rank him above T.Y. So now we're going too low here. Again, I'm saying,
I'm listing the people, the guys who finished higher in points last year.
Okay, yeah. But right now, the debate is: does Julio Jones deserve to be up there with Brown, Beckham, Evans, and Jordy? In my opinion, he's the next level below them. And I will take that to the grave with me. Until he shows me the consistency, I can't give it to him. I just can't. Now, as far as classiness, he's the most classiest receiver I've seen in this league. Hands down. Most classiest receiver. But classy don't win me championships in fantasy.
Right, but I think that's the issue with Julio. The reason why you have to kind of put him at that tier, even if he's at the bottom of that tier, is because of the height of that ceiling. That's the only reason. Mm-hmm. Because all those other guys, I can't see them putting up 38 points in a week. I can't, and I like them. I can't see them do that. But could I see Julio doing that? Sure. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's the reason why all those guys are above him is because of their floor. Their floor is higher. I'll pick somebody random. I'll take Beckham. Right. Of his single point games, he had 7, 8, 2, 4, 4. Cool. With Julio, it was 1, 2, 2, 3. Floor's too low. Ceiling is in the atmosphere. It's just that from week in, week out, sometimes you want him to at least get you 50, maybe. But even at his low, he's not getting you that because all those guys' floors are higher. Even at their worst, they're going to at least give you 5 to 6 points. At his worst, he's only going to give you 1 or 2, as you can see here. But the ceiling is so high, you can't help but to push him up into that level because he's the only guy that has that kind of explosiveness that can make that happen. Like I said, got a disagreement with him is that with all those other guys, I know even if I'm having a great fantasy week, at worst I'm going to get 5 points out of Beckham or 6 points out of Brown. I know I'm not going to get no 2. I know I'm not going to get no 3. But with Julio, you might get that. Now, when he does go off, it's definitely going to be a lot higher. But that floor is just so minuscule sometimes. You don't get that consistent 5, 6, 5, 15, 20, 22, 18, 5, 8.
Yeah, and that's why again he's at the level below. But back to my man Rich, just because I apologize, I had to go off on my tangent again.
Sorry,
I do this every time. But Rich is gonna be in good shape. But do I think Rich wins a championship? No, because I don't think Julio Jones is gonna be there for him when he needs it most. And that's what I think ultimately is going to cost him the championship. If you switch it and you give Rich Jordy Nelson last year and you give Anthony Julio Jones, I'm curious to see what ends up happening as far as does Anthony make it to the championship? I'm curious about that. I'm very, very curious about that. But again, we'll never know. But I think ultimately, what Rich has to do is Rich has each one position. I think Rich needs to go out there, focus on getting a tight end, and then focus on getting another top flight receiver. And I think if he can do that, he'll be in competition again. With that being said, let's get to the champion himself, Anthony.
Yes.
You will go first because it's your team. I want you to go ahead and I want you to tell us what you're going to do. You really only have two choices, deciding to keep Jameis Winston or deciding to keep David Johnson. What are we doing?
I don't know why you even said it's a choice. That's the funny part. I'm keeping David Johnson.
Well, because on a couple episodes ago when we asked you on the show, you stood quiet. You didn't want to give an answer, so that's why.
Yeah, I had to think about it. Can I get time to think about what my response is going to be? Can't be out in the streets just saying whatever. I got to know what I'm talking about. And what I'm talking about is that I have a guy who is one of the elite fantasy running backs in the league, who's also one of the best receivers in the league, playing on an offense that should get their crap together this year, which we're hoping to do. They didn't have their crap together last year. He was number 1 and number 2 back in fantasy. I'm hoping that everybody's healthy and things start to fall into shape. You think he'll do better than he did last year? And last year scored 300 points. Could he do more this year? Maybe, but I think that's pushing it. According to ESPN, he scored 313 points.
Damn, that's crazy.
He could do that again. But like I said, he's not just a running back. He's a receiving threat. He's a number 2 option. Him and Le'Veon Bell are basically like equal parts. And you got to hold on to a guy like that. And as much as I wanted to keep Winston, I think there's a lot of quarterback talent out there that can really help my team. I couldn't sacrifice a guy like David Johnson, not for anything, not for anybody. I traded off my other backs, but I didn't move Johnson. I could have. I mean, I had McCoy. I had Murray. He was cool, but they're not Johnson. No one is. Because of the specific, unique talent that he is, I couldn't get rid of him. And I still can't. As much as I love Jameis Winston, I'm just not certain that he's going to finish as the top 10 guy this year, but I think I have some things in order. I just had to draft intelligently, put the right pieces in place, and know where the risk is worth the reward. If there's a guy there that I love, and I know only has so much cap space, I'm going to spend for him because I think David Johnson just helps.
What's that guy's name? What's that guy's name?
Oh, don't worry about it.
Come on to me. You got to give info on this show. That's what this show's all about.
Yeah, see, if once you win 2 years in a row, it's like you don't get no more info, man. All the years. And was nobody there to help me when I had that one win season and I was sitting there looking crazy?
What are you talking about? We had conversations upon conversations about conversations throughout that entire offseason, me trying to help you. So don't say nobody was helping you, because your boy right here, who has yet to win a championship in AGS, was there for you. I've helped you win a championship. Now, I didn't win it. You won it yourself. But damn, at least give me some props for talking you through things at times.
The piece of advice I'm going to give is that spend your money wisely. That's what you should do. Spend your money wisely.
Here, can I go next?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
All right. Here's where I think, although you're a two-time champ, and I respect you, and I congratulate you, I think you messed up on one thing, and that was trading away Cam Newton. And here's why. Because you made your money, and I've been waiting to say this for a very long time.
Oh, boy.
You made your money on, I believe it was the DeMarco Murray trade.
Yes.
With Dom.
Yep.
Right? You made a pot load of money. So what I did not understand is why you then continued to trade another person away off your squad when you could have kept that money, you could have kept Jameis Winston, and you could have kept your boy. So now you're in I just feel like you already won once you made that DeMarco Murray trade. You could have had your quarterback set, and I get it. You don't think he's a top 10. I strongly disagree with you. I think he's definitely – Jameis Winston will definitely be between 10 and 8 next year because they don't have a running game and they have all those weapons. So they're just going to throw the ball like crazy. All right?
Okay, cool.
So,
I think you're wrong, but all right.
So then – you have David Johnson for that money. You would keep Jameis Winston. You'd have that extra pocket in your cash, right? So then you add the $20 tag onto David Johnson, which does 66. You're still in the field of play. So, what's his cap now? What's your cap now? Officially, if you keep David Johnson.
If he keeps David Johnson is 40.
But he has to pay the 20.
No, he doesn't have to pay the 20. Nope, because the 20 went in the DeMarco Murray trade. So he's gonna pay straight up 46. So it's 46 straight up. So he has 154.
So he has 154, and okay, on top of the additional funds counts towards that, right?
Yep.
So 154. So you have 154 in Johnson, which is not bad. And
plus 19. I'm sorry. Yeah, plus the 19. Plus the 19. So 154. So that's going to be 173.
So 173. So you're in a great spot. And I'm not. You've had the most cap last year, and I think the year before, and you won the championship. You have a strong player to build around, which we all know if David Johnson was out there. If Odell's going for that crazy amount, David Johnson has to be around that number. We can all agree, right, gentlemen?
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. So, with that being said, you're already ahead of the curve, and I'm commending you. And I'm not saying you can't put a team together. I really thought you would keep Jameis Winston because the purpose of you getting him for $3 was for that, so you didn't have to worry about a quarterback going down the road. So that's the only thing where I disagreed with you on. Other than that, I mean, there's not much to be said. You're a two-time champ for a reason. You could draft incredibly now. There were 2 years in a row where everybody was laughing at you. You now have the respect of the league. People are going to be afraid as far as my fear with Anthony, though, is I feel the players you target, people are going to be aware, and they're going to make you overpay.
Why do you think I ain't saying that now?
That's the only thing. People are going to start realizing how you're drafted, and they're going to join that bandwagon. And that's what's going to happen for you. And I think this year of all years, I think this year is going to be a very difficult year for you to win. Not because of how you draft, but because there's 2 other people coming in and you have less money. That's the only scenario where I see where it's going to be a little bit tough for you. But I still view you as a contender. I still view you as a playoff contending team. And that's all I got to say.
Yeah.
So he gives you credit, he hugs you, he shakes your hand, he slaps you up and down, and then he hugs you and shakes your hand at the end of it again. That's interesting.
That's where love goes, man.
So anyway, let me go ahead. Anthony, I think it's, I kind of agree with Steve, and I never thought about it. So Steve, good job bringing it to my attention. That Cam Newton deal kind of put you in that situation, right, where. But I don't think that was the reason for it, Steve, because Cam Newton wasn't his guy to begin with, if I'm not mistaken. Cam Newton was Dennis's. So Dennis actually sent Cam Newton to Anthony for McCoy. Anthony originally had McCoy. So regardless whether he trades Cam Newton or not, he wasn't going to be able to keep another player.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, because McCoy, there was a deal between Dennis and Cam Newton and $12 to Anthony for McCoy, LaShawn McCoy. So regardless, it wasn't, he couldn't do anything anyways. So he was still jammed up. So all he basically did was just get some cash out of that. That was what he went for. So
and the whole thing that cash might end up being, you said it's 171 now. It might go up to 184. Just depend, or 181 or 184, depending on the games Cam play.
Yep, that's very true. So again, I get where where Steve was coming from if it wasn't for that other trade. But with that being said, Anthony, I think you're in a position where your main focus going into the draft is going to be get yourself a receiver. And I think Jordy Nelson coming back to your team is definitely something that's a viable option. I think it's definitely something you should strongly consider. And then on top of that, you bringing back Jameis Winston, I think is important. I think if you can find a way to bring him back, you do it. I know you and we've had early talks about Tom Brady, me sending you Tom Brady. But even if you can't land the Tom Brady, I think, the quarterback position is so deep this year. Even if you just rotate quarterbacks, I think you did that last year, if I'm not mistaken, anyways. And it was pretty successful for you. So you're one of the rare people that is able to rotate quarterbacks in and out like defenses and make it work. So I'm not too concerned with that aspect of it, but I do think you need to get yourself a tight end, and I do think you need to get yourself a receiver. If you can get yourself those two things where you're not putting all the pressure on David Johnson to do exactly what he did last year, because I find that risky when you expect one guy to do the exact same thing, carry the team. It's always risky to do that. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure you put that talent around them like you did last year. If you can do that, by all means, you'll be right back where you usually are. But I don't think you're winning. I don't think you're winning the division this year. I think the division this year belongs to the New York Powers. Just saying.
I'm not trying to make. I'm not making this comparison because it's blasphemous. But how long have you been playing fantasy football?
Oh man, shoot. I mean, I would say 10 years easily. Myself.
How long?
Yeah.
Right.
A long time.
And then we talk about running backs and everything else. I'm not comparing the guy to him because, again, I think that's blasphemous. But you remember what LT used to do.
Oh, come on.
I'm not saying he's LT.
I'm
just saying no one had a fantasy year like that since LT. That's all I can say.
Hey, I just think it's not. This isn't the football in the 2000s anymore. We're in 2017. They just don't do that anymore. Things like that. But again, if they does, props to you. I still think he'll be a top 5 running back. I think he'll be a top 3 running back. I'm just saying you need to get more talent around him because you had that last year. You had Jordan Reed, you had Jordy Nelson, you had LaShawn McCoy, DeMarco Murray. So even if a guy had a bad game, there were so many other guys to step in. And I think you need to make sure you do that again.
I am interested in Jordan Reed again. I want to see how his health works out, but he is a guy I'm definitely interested in 100%.
Yeah, he's already dealing with injuries already in camp, which is just, I don't know. That guy can't just stay healthy. But anyways, guys, that's our show. We thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you all at the draft. Make sure you pay your league dues. Make sure you pay it. All right, everybody, stay safe. Be safe. We are out. Peace.